My own father held the knife for the first stab wound. By the time my Muslim family finished, they had pierced my body 72 times. Once for each verse I had memorized about Jesus being Lord. The imam said Allah would curse me for leaving Islam. But when I opened my eyes 3 days later, the scars on my chest told a different story about who really holds the power over life and death. My name is Aminu Kassim, and I died for 72 minutes in a hospital in Kaduna, Nigeria. The doctors said my body had been destroyed beyond any possibility of survival. 72 stab wounds, each one placed with the precision of religious fury. My own Muslim family had done this to me, led by the man who taught me my first Islamic prayers. But I'm not here to tell you about the brutality of that night, though every scar on my chest bears witness to it. I'm here because of what happened when I crossed over. When I left my mutilated body behind and encountered the truth that no amount of Islamic persecution could silence. What I saw in those 72 minutes changed everything I thought I knew about Allah, about Jesus, and about which God truly holds the power over life and death. The wooden cross they tried to destroy, it came back. The Christian faith they tried to cut out of me with their knives, it grew stronger. And the scars they left as a warning to other Muslim converts, God turned them into the most powerful testimony I could ever give. If this moment stirred something in you about the cost of following Christ, consider subscribing so someone facing religious persecution can find the hope they desperately need. This is my story. This is my proof. This is what happens when Islamic death sentences meet the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. The call to Fajr prayer echoed across Kaduna at 5:17 a.m., just like it had every morning for the 23 years of my life. I knelt on my prayer mat, facing Mecca, reciting the same Arabic verses my father had beaten into my memory since I was 5 years old. But that morning, something was different. The words felt hollow in my mouth, like I was speaking to an empty sky. Allahu Akbar, I whispered, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. 3 months earlier, I had done something that would have gotten me killed if my family knew. I had walked into a small Christian church on the outskirts of our Muslim neighborhood, not to convert, just to understand why these Christians seemed to have something we Muslims didn't: peace, joy, a certainty about their God that I had never felt about Allah, no matter how many times I prostrated myself in prayer. The pastor, a gentle Hausa man named Samuel, had given me a small wooden cross. Nothing fancy, just 2 pieces of wood bound together with wire. Keep this, he had said in broken Arabic. When you're ready to know the truth about Isa al-Masih, Jesus the Messiah, hold this and pray. I had hidden that cross in a small hole I carved behind a loose brick in my bedroom wall. Every night after my family slept, I would take it out and hold it, whispering the name that was forbidden in our house, Jesus. That morning, as I finished my Islamic prayers, I could hear my father, Musa, preparing for his day as an imam at our local mosque. He was a respected man in our community, a man who had memorized the entire Quran and could recite it in perfect Arabic, a man who had taught me that Christians were kafir, infidels destined for hellfire, a man who would rather see his son dead than see him worship the false god Jesus. But I had already made my choice. 2 weeks before this morning, I had knelt in that same Christian church and surrendered my life to Jesus Christ. I had felt something I had never experienced in 23 years of Islamic worship. The presence of a living God who knew my name, who loved me personally, who had died for my sins. Not the distant, unknowable Allah who demanded submission but offered no relationship, but Jesus, who called me his son. I had memorized 72 verses from the Bible about Jesus being Lord, 72 declarations of his divinity that directly contradicted everything Islam had taught me. Each verse was like a nail in the coffin of my Muslim faith, and I knew that if my family discovered them, they would become nails in my literal coffin. The wooden cross had become my lifeline. Every time doubt crept in, every time the weight of leaving Islam felt too heavy, I would hold that cross and remember the moment Jesus had revealed himself to me. Not in a dream, not in a vision, but in a real, tangible encounter that had shattered every Islamic doctrine I had ever believed. As I rolled up my prayer mat that morning, I heard my father calling from the kitchen, Aminu, come eat before I leave for the mosque. I walked into our small kitchen, where my mother, Hawa, was serving breakfast. She was a devout Muslim woman who wore her hijab even inside our home, who had never questioned a single teaching of Islam in her entire life. She looked at me with the same loving eyes she had always had, not knowing that her son had committed the ultimate betrayal in her faith. "You look tired, my son," she said, placing a bowl of porridge in front of me. "Are you getting enough sleep?" If only she knew that I stayed awake, reading the Bible by candlelight, that I spent hours on my knees praying to Jesus instead of Allah, that I had been attending Christian services while telling them I was at the market. My father sat across from me, his weathered hands folded in prayer over his food. "Bismillah," he began, and I mechanically repeated the Islamic blessing, though my heart was crying out to Jesus. "The imam from Zaria is coming to speak at our mosque today," my father said between bites. "He will be teaching about the dangers of Christian missionaries in our region, about how they deceive young Muslims with lies about their false prophet." My stomach clenched. I forced myself to nod respectfully, but inside, I was screaming. Jesus wasn't a false prophet. He was the Son of God. He was my savior. He was everything Islam said he wasn't. "These Christians," my father continued, his voice growing harder, "they are enemies of Allah. Any Muslim who turns to their religion, they deserve whatever punishment Allah sends them." The wooden cross seemed to burn against my chest, where I had hidden it in my shirt pocket. I could feel it there, a constant reminder of the choice I had made, and the price I would pay if it was discovered. After breakfast, my father left for the mosque, and my mother went to visit her sister. I was alone in the house, alone with my secret and the growing certainty that I couldn't hide it much longer. I went to my room and pulled out the small Bible that Pastor Samuel had given me. I had been reading the Gospel of John, and the words seemed to leap off the page. "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Not through Muhammad, not through Islamic prayers, not through submission to Allah, through Jesus alone. I held the wooden cross in my hands and whispered the prayer that had become my daily confession. "Jesus, I know you are Lord. I know you died for my sins. I know you are the only way to God. Help me be strong enough to tell my family the truth." I had no idea that in less than 12 hours, that prayer would be answered in the most brutal way possible. I had no idea that my father was already suspicious, that he had been watching me, questioning my late-night absences, noticing the change in my demeanor during Islamic prayers. And I had no idea that the wooden cross I held so carefully in my hands would soon be the only thing standing between me and a death that would make Islamic martyrdom look like mercy. The last ordinary day of my life was ending. The 72 stab wounds were coming, and Jesus Christ was about to prove that he is more powerful than any Islamic death sentence. The sound that woke me wasn't the call to prayer. It was the sound of my bedroom door being kicked open at 11:43 p.m. My father stood in the doorway, holding my Bible in one hand and the wooden cross in the other. Behind him, I could see my uncles, Yusuf and Ibrahim, and my older brother, Sani. Their faces were twisted with a rage I had never seen before, the righteous fury of Muslims who had discovered a traitor in their own family. Kafir. My father spat, using the Arabic word for infidel, apostate, enemy of Allah. I sat up in my bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. There was no point in denying it now. The evidence was in his hands. The Bible I had been reading every night, the cross I had been praying to, instead of facing Mecca. "Baba, please." I started, but his hand struck my face with the force of 23 years of Islamic devotion being shattered. "Don't call me father," he roared. "No son of mine worships the false god of the Christians. No son of mine betrays the faith of Muhammad." My uncle Yusuf stepped forward, and I saw the knife in his hand, a long, curved blade that he used for slaughtering goats during Eid celebrations. "The Quran is clear about apostates. Musa," he said to my father, "death is the only punishment that pleases Allah." "Wait," my father said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than his shouting. "If he wants to worship the Christian God, if he wants to believe that Jesus died for his sins, then let him experience what his precious Savior experienced. That's when I understood. They weren't just going to kill me quickly. They were going to make it hurt. They were going to make it last. They were going to turn my death into a lesson for any other Muslim who might be tempted to follow Jesus. My brother Sani grabbed my arms and pinned them behind my back. I could smell the anger on his breath, mixed with the scent of the Islamic prayers he had been reciting before they came to my room. "How many verses did you memorize about your false god?" my father asked, holding up my Bible. "How many times did you deny Allah in your heart?" 72, I whispered, because there was no point in lying anymore. I memorized 72 verses about Jesus being Lord. My father smiled, but it was the smile of a man who had just received divine inspiration for revenge. 72 verses. Then you will receive 72 wounds. One for each time you chose the Christian lie over Islamic truth. The first stab came without warning. My father drove the knife into my shoulder, and the pain exploded through my body like fire. But it wasn't just physical pain. It was the agony of being betrayed by the man who had taught me to walk, who had held me when I was sick, who had been my hero for 23 years. "La ilaha illa Allah," he recited as he pulled the knife out, blood streaming down my arm. "There is no God but Allah, and you have forgotten this truth." The second stab went into my chest, missing my heart by inches. I screamed, but my uncle Ibrahim covered my mouth with his hand. "We can't wake the neighbors," he hissed. "This is family business, Islamic justice." They took turns. My father, my uncles, my brother. Each stab wound was deliberate, calculated to cause maximum pain without killing me too quickly. They wanted me to suffer. They wanted me to renounce Jesus and return to Islam. They wanted me to beg Allah for forgiveness. But with each stab, something strange happened. Instead of growing weaker, my faith grew stronger. Instead of crying out to Allah, I found myself whispering the name of Jesus. Isa al-Masih. I gasped as the knife pierced my stomach. Jesus the Messiah. "Stop saying that name," my father screamed, driving the blade deeper. "Say La ilaha illa Allah. Say there is no God but Allah." But I couldn't. Even as my blood pooled on the floor of my childhood bedroom, even as my own family carved their Islamic fury into my flesh, I couldn't deny the truth I had discovered. Jesus was Lord. Jesus was God. Jesus was worth dying for. By the time they reached the 50th stab wound, I was barely conscious. My body was a map of Islamic rage. Each cut a testament to the price of choosing Christ over Muhammad. But my spirit was soaring. I could feel myself leaving my body, floating above the scene of my own murder. I could see my father counting each wound, making sure he reached exactly 72. I could see my mother in the doorway, weeping, but not intervening, because Islamic law was more important than maternal love. And I could see something else, a light beginning to form at the edges of my vision. Not the harsh fluorescent light of my bedroom, but something warm and golden and alive. The 72nd stab wound pierced my heart. My father stepped back, breathing heavily, covered in his son's blood. "It is finished," he said, echoing the words of Jesus on the cross. Without realizing it, Allah's justice is complete. But as my body went limp, and my breathing stopped, as my family stood over my corpse, believing they had defended their Islamic faith, I was discovering that their justice was nothing compared to God's mercy. The threshold between life and death isn't a door, it's a choice. And I was about to discover what happens when someone chooses Jesus, even unto death. The first thing I noticed wasn't the absence of pain. It was the presence of perfect peace. One moment I was drowning in my own blood on my bedroom floor, my father's knife buried in my heart, and the next moment I was standing in a place that had no earthly comparison. Not floating, standing, not wounded, whole, not dying, more alive than I had ever been. The light around me wasn't like sunlight or electric light. It was alive, pulsing with a warmth that penetrated not just my body but my very soul. And in that light, I could see everything with a clarity that made my earthly vision seem like blindness. I was in a vast space that seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction, yet felt intimately personal at the same time. The ground beneath my feet appeared to be made of something like crystal, but it was soft and warm. The air. If it was air, carried the fragrance of every beautiful thing I had ever smelled, but magnified beyond imagination. But what struck me most powerfully was the silence of condemnation. For 23 years, I had lived under the weight of Islamic judgment. Every prayer was measured. Every action was weighed against the scales of Allah's approval. Every moment was shadowed by the fear that I wasn't good enough, wasn't devout enough, wasn't worthy enough to escape hellfire. Here, in this place, beyond death, that weight was completely gone. Aminu. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, gentle as a whisper yet powerful enough to shake mountains. I turned, and my heart stopped, or would have, if I still had a physical heart to stop. Standing before me was a figure of indescribable beauty and majesty. His face shone like the sun, but I could look directly at him without being blinded. His eyes held depths of love that made every earthly affection seem shallow by comparison. His hands bore scars. I knew immediately who he was, though he looked nothing like the pale European Jesus I had seen in Christian artwork. This was Isa al-Masih, Jesus the Messiah. But he was Middle Eastern, with olive skin and dark hair, looking more like the Jewish carpenter he had been than the Western savior I had imagined. "My son," he said, and those two words contained more love than I had received in my entire earthly life. I fell to my knees, not out of the ritualistic obligation I had known in Islamic prayer, but out of overwhelming gratitude and awe. "Lord," I whispered, "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I couldn't tell my family about you before they." He knelt beside me, and I felt his scarred hand on my shoulder. "Aminu, you were stronger than you know. Every verse you memorized about me, every night you chose to pray to me instead of Allah. Every moment you held that wooden cross and declared your faith, it was heard. It was honored. It was enough. But they killed me for choosing you over Islam," I said, tears streaming down my face. "My own father." He said Allah's justice demanded my death. Jesus' expression grew infinitely sad, but not angry. "My child, what you experienced wasn't Allah's justice. It was human fear disguised as religious devotion. The God I came to reveal, the Father I came to show you, He doesn't demand death for those who seek truth. He gives life." Around us, the light seemed to pulse brighter, and I began to see images forming in the air, scenes from my life, but viewed from a perspective I had never had before. I saw myself as a child, mechanically reciting Quran verses I didn't understand, going through the motions of Islamic worship, while my heart yearned for something more personal, more real. I saw myself in that Christian church, the moment Jesus first revealed himself to me. But now I could see what I hadn't seen then. Angels surrounding me, celebrating my decision to follow Christ. I saw my family planning my murder, and I could see the spiritual darkness that had convinced them they were serving God by killing their own son. In Islam, Jesus said gently, "You were taught that God is distant, unknowable, demanding submission without relationship. You were taught that salvation comes through works, through perfect obedience to religious law, through earning your way into paradise." The scenes around us shifted, showing me the truth I had discovered in those final weeks of my earthly life. "But I came to show you a different way. Not a distant God who demands submission, but a loving Father who desires relationship. Not salvation through works, but salvation through grace. Not earning your way to heaven, but receiving it as a gift through my sacrifice." I looked at his scarred hands again, and suddenly I understood the difference between Islamic martyrdom and Christian sacrifice. Islamic martyrs die to earn paradise, hoping their death will tip the scales in their favor with Allah. But Jesus died not to earn anything. He died to give everything away. "The 72 stab wounds," I whispered. "They were meant to be my punishment for leaving Islam. But I will turn them into your testimony?" Jesus replied, "Every scar will become a declaration of my power over death. Every wound will become a witness to my love that is stronger than religious hatred." If you've ever wondered whether God's love is stronger than religious persecution, share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggle. The light around us began to intensify, and I felt a pull, not away from Jesus, but deeper into his presence. "Am I staying here?" I asked, part of me hoping the answer was yes. Jesus smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise for the first time. Not yet, my son. You have a work to do, a testimony to give, a proof to carry back with you that will shake the foundations of religious hatred in your community. What proof? He touched my chest, right where my father's final knife thrust had pierced my heart. The 72 wounds that were meant to silence your witness, I will transform them into the most powerful testimony you could ever give. I felt a warmth spreading through my chest, and I looked down to see light emanating from where each stab wound had been. But the light wasn't random. It was forming a pattern. A cross. The 72 stab wounds were arranging themselves into the shape of a perfect cross across my chest. When you return, Jesus said, this will be your proof. Not just that you survived what should have killed you, but that I turned your persecution into your platform. Your wounds into your witness. Your death sentence into your declaration of life. The pull was getting stronger now, and I realized I was being drawn back toward my earthly body. Will I see you again? I asked, suddenly desperate not to leave his presence. Every day, he promised. In every prayer, in every act of obedience, in every moment you choose to follow me, despite the cost. And one day, you will return here, permanently. But for now, go back. Tell them what you have seen. Show them what I have done. The last thing I saw before the light faded was his face, radiant with love and purpose. The last thing I heard was his voice. Fear not, Aminu. I am with you always. And then I was falling back toward a broken body, a grieving family, and a world that was about to discover that Islamic death sentences are no match for the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. But before I fell completely back into my body, Jesus caught me. Not physically, spiritually. Like a father catching a child who has jumped from too high a place, he held me suspended between the eternal and the temporal, between the realm of perfect love and the world of religious hatred. There is more you need to understand, he said, his voice carrying an urgency I hadn't heard before. What you will face when you return. It will be worse than what you have already endured. Around us, the light shifted, and I began to see visions of what was coming. My family, discovering that I was still alive. The Islamic community, gathering to finish what my father had started. More attacks, more persecution, more attempts to silence the testimony I would carry. They will say your survival is the work of Satan. Jesus continued. They will claim that only dark magic could have brought you back from 72 fatal wounds. They will use your miracle as proof that Christianity is demonic. I felt fear creeping into my heart for the first time since entering this realm. Then why are you sending me back? Why not let me stay here with you? Jesus turned to face me fully, and I saw something in his eyes that took my breath away. Not just love, but fierce, protective determination. Because, my son, there are others like you. Muslims who are searching for truth but are terrified of the cost. Christians who are wavering under persecution, wondering if I am really worth dying for. People who need to see that my power is greater than Islamic death sentences. He gestured, and the air around us filled with faces. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Men and women from across Nigeria, across Africa, across the Middle East. All of them carrying the same hunger I had carried, the same questions about God that Islamic doctrine couldn't answer. Each of these souls is precious to me, Jesus said. Each one is worth the pain you will endure. Each one needs to see what happens when someone chooses me over Muhammad, even unto death. I looked at the faces surrounding us, and I began to understand. My survival wasn't just about me. It was about every Muslim who had ever wondered if there was more to God than what Islam taught. It was about every Christian who had ever doubted whether Jesus was worth the persecution they faced. The cross-shaped scars, I said, beginning to grasp the full magnitude of what he was doing. They're not just proof of my survival, they're proof of your identity. Exactly. His smile was radiant. For 2,000 years, Muslims have been taught that I never died on a cross, that someone else was crucified in my place, that the cross is a symbol of Christian delusion, not divine sacrifice. The light around us pulsed, and I saw the truth with startling clarity. But when they see the 72 stab wounds arranged in the shape of a cross on your chest, when they see that I turned their attempt to kill you into a permanent declaration of my crucifixion, they will have to confront the reality they have spent their lives denying. I felt the weight of this responsibility settling on my shoulders. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail you? Jesus reached out and touched the center of my chest, right where the cross-shaped scars were forming. Aminu, you have already proven your strength. You chose me when it cost you everything. You held on to faith when your own family tried to cut it out of you with knives. You whispered my name with your dying breath. The warmth from his touch spread through my entire being, and I felt a power I had never experienced before. Not the desperate, striving energy of Islamic devotion, but the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who knows they are loved unconditionally. Besides, he continued, you won't be alone. Every time you show someone these scars, I will be there. Every time you tell this story, my spirit will confirm its truth in the hearts of those who hear it. Every time you face persecution for my name, my angels will surround you. The visions around us shifted again, and I saw glimpses of my future, standing before crowds of Muslims, showing them the cross-shaped scars, facing down Islamic clerics who tried to explain away the miracle, leading other Muslim converts to Christ, using my testimony as proof that Jesus is stronger than Allah's supposed judgment. But I also saw the cost. More attacks, more rejection from family, years of living as a marked man in a community that wanted me dead. The wooden cross, I said suddenly, remembering the small token that had started my journey to faith. They destroyed it when they found it in my room. Jesus' eyes twinkled with something that looked almost like mischief. Did they? Before I could ask what he meant, I felt the pull again. Stronger this time. Irresistible. It's time, he said. Your body has been dead for exactly 72 minutes. Long enough for the doctors to declare you gone. Long enough for your family to begin planning your burial according to Islamic law. Long enough for word to spread through the community that the apostate has received Allah's justice. And long enough, he added with that radiant smile, for your return to be undeniably miraculous. I felt myself being drawn away from him, back toward the world of pain and persecution and religious hatred. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was carrying something with me that no amount of Islamic fury could destroy. The truth, the proof, the cross-shaped scars that would declare to every Muslim who saw them that Jesus Christ is Lord, that he died on a cross for their sins, and that his power over death is absolute. If someone you love is facing persecution for their faith, quietly share this testimony with them. Let them know that Jesus is worth whatever it costs to follow him. Remember, Jesus called after me as the light began to fade. I am with you always, even when the knives come again, even when your own family disowns you, even when the Islamic community declares you an enemy of Allah, I am with you. The last thing I saw was his face shining with love and purpose. The last thing I felt was his hand on my chest, sealing the cross-shaped scars that would become my permanent testimony. And then I was falling back into a world that was about to discover that Islamic death sentences are no match for the resurrection power of the Son of God. The first breath back in my earthly body felt like swallowing broken glass. My eyes opened to the sterile white ceiling of Kaduna General Hospital, and the first sound I heard was my mother's scream. Not a scream of joy, a scream of terror. Because according to Islamic belief, the dead don't return unless something unholy has brought them back. Allahu Akbar, she shrieked, stumbling backward from my hospital bed. He's alive! The kafir is alive! My father, who had been sitting in the corner reading Quranic verses over what he thought was my corpse, dropped his prayer beads and stared at me with a mixture of shock and rage. This is impossible, he whispered. You were dead. The doctors confirmed it. Your heart stopped for 72 minutes. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper. A nurse rushed in, alerted by my mother's screaming, and her eyes went wide when she saw me sitting up in bed. Dr. Yusuf! She called down the hallway. The patient in room 7. He's awake! Dr. Yusuf, a middle-aged Hausa man who had been the one to pronounce me dead, entered the room looking like he had seen a ghost. Which, From his perspective, he had, "This is medically impossible," he muttered, checking my pulse, my blood pressure, my breathing. 72 stab wounds. Massive blood loss. No heartbeat for over an hour. "You should be dead. You should be dead." I was dead, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But Jesus brought me back. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. My father's face contorted with a fury that made his rage 3 days earlier look like mild irritation. "Don't you dare speak that name in my presence," he hissed. "Don't you dare credit the Christian God with this abomination." Dr. Yusuf was still examining me, his medical training warring with his Islamic worldview. "The wounds?" he said, his voice filled with confusion. "They're healed, not just closed, completely healed. There should be massive scarring, but..." He pulled back the hospital gown covering my chest, and everyone in the room gasped. The scars were there, exactly as Jesus had promised. 72 of them, each one a thin white line against my dark skin. But they weren't random, they weren't chaotic. They formed a perfect cross across my chest, from my collarbone to my stomach, from shoulder to shoulder. "Subhanallah," my mother whispered, using the Arabic phrase that means glory to Allah, but her voice carried horror instead of praise. My father stared at the cross-shaped scars for a long moment, and I could see his mind racing, trying to find an Islamic explanation for what he was seeing. "Witchcraft," he finally declared. "Dark magic. The Christians have made a pact with Satan to bring you back from the dead and mark you with their blasphemous symbol." Dr. Yusuf shook his head. "Musa, I'm a man of science and a devout Muslim, but I've never seen anything like this. The precision of these scars, the way they've healed, the fact that he survived wounds that should have killed him instantly." "Are you suggesting that the Christian God is more powerful than Allah?" my father snapped. The doctor fell silent, but I could see the question in his eyes. The same question that was beginning to spread through the hospital as word of my resurrection spread from room to room, floor to floor. Within hours, the news had reached our neighborhood. Within a day, it had spread throughout Kaduna. The Muslim convert who had been killed by his own family for choosing Jesus and had come back from the dead with a Christian cross carved into his chest by divine intervention. The Islamic community's response was swift and brutal. On my third day back from the dead, while I was still recovering in the hospital, a group of young Muslim men from our mosque forced their way into my room. They were led by Abdullahi, a radical imam who had been preaching jihad against Christians in our region. "So," he said, his voice dripping with contempt, "the apostate returns from the grave. Tell me, Kafir, what lies did Satan whisper to you in the darkness?" "I saw Jesus," I said simply. "I spoke with him. He sent me back to tell you that he loves you, that he died for your sins, and that Islam cannot save you." Abdullahi's hand moved faster than I could react. The knife sliced across my throat, opening a wound that should have killed me instantly. But instead of blood, light seemed to pour from the cut, and it healed before their eyes. "Impossible," one of the young men whispered. Abdullahi tried again, this time driving the blade toward my heart. But when it touched the center of the cross-shaped scars, the knife shattered like glass. "You see?" I said, my voice growing stronger. "Jesus Christ is more powerful than any weapon you can use against his children. He is more powerful than Islamic death sentences. He is more powerful than Allah." The room erupted in chaos. Some of the men fled, terrified by what they had witnessed. Others began attacking me with their bare hands, trying to beat the life out of me that their knives couldn't take. But every blow they landed healed instantly. Every wound they opened closed before their eyes. And through it all, the cross-shaped scars on my chest glowed with a light that seemed to come from within. If this glimpse of Christ's supernatural protection over his persecuted children stirred something in your heart, subscribe so others facing religious violence can find this hope. Hospital security eventually broke up the attack, but the damage was done. Not to me, but to the Islamic certainty that had ruled our community for generations. Word spread like wildfire. The Christian convert who couldn't be killed. The man whose scars formed a cross. The living proof that Jesus Christ had power over death itself. My family disowned me that day. My father stood at the foot of my hospital bed and declared that I was no longer his son, that my name would never be spoken in his house again, that as far as Islamic law was concerned, I had died 3 days earlier, and whatever had returned was not his child. "You are dead to us," he said, his voice breaking with grief and rage. "Dead to your family, dead to your community, dead to Allah. Whatever demon has possessed your body, it will not find welcome in our home." My mother wept as they left, but she didn't look back. In Islam, family loyalty is secondary to religious purity, and I had become the ultimate impurity. A living testament to the power of the Christian God they had spent their lives denying. But as I lay in that hospital bed, abandoned by everyone I had ever loved, I felt something I had never experienced in 23 years of Islamic devotion. Peace. Complete, unshakable peace. Because I wasn't alone. Jesus had promised to be with me always, and I could feel his presence like a warm blanket around my soul, the wooden cross that my family had destroyed. I could feel it in my heart, stronger than ever. And I knew that this was just the beginning. The cross-shaped scars on my chest weren't just proof of my survival. They were a declaration of war against every lie Islam had ever told about Jesus Christ. The real battle was about to begin. I was discharged from the hospital on a Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after my resurrection. The doctors had no medical explanation for my complete recovery, but they couldn't argue with the evidence. I was alive, I was healed, and the cross-shaped scars across my chest were undeniable proof that something beyond human understanding had occurred. Pastor Samuel was waiting for me at the hospital entrance. The gentle man who had given me that first wooden cross now looked at me with a mixture of awe and concern. "Aminu," he said softly, "the entire Christian community is talking about what happened to you, but the Muslim community, they're calling for your blood. Are you sure you want to do this?" "Do what?" I asked, though I already knew what he meant. "Tell your story publicly. Show people the scars. There's a church in Zaria that wants you to speak this Sunday. But if you do this, if you stand up and declare what Jesus did for you, there will be no going back. The Islamic extremists will never stop hunting you." I looked down at my chest, where the cross-shaped scars were visible, even through my shirt. 72 stab wounds, arranged by divine intervention into the most powerful Christian symbol in existence. How could I keep this hidden? How could I remain silent about what Jesus had done? "Pastor," I said, "Jesus didn't bring me back from the dead so I could hide in fear. He gave me these scars as a testimony. If I don't share it, who will?" That Sunday, I stood before a congregation of 300 Christians in Zaria, many of whom had driven for hours to see the Muslim convert who had died and returned with the cross of Christ carved into his flesh. When I removed my shirt and showed them the scars, the entire church fell silent. Then, one by one, they began to weep. Not tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming joy and wonder at the power of God. "My brothers and sisters," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the packed sanctuary, "I stand before you as living proof that Jesus Christ is more powerful than Islamic death sentences. I stand before you as evidence that the cross is not a symbol of defeat, but a victory over every force that tries to silence the gospel." I told them everything. The 72 verses I had memorized about Jesus being Lord, the 72 stab wounds my Muslim family had inflicted, the 72 minutes I had been dead. The encounter with Jesus, in the realm beyond death, the promise that these scars would become my testimony. "Islam teaches that Jesus never died on a cross," I declared, pointing to the perfect cross formation across my chest. "But God has written the truth of the crucifixion on my very body. Every Muslim who sees these scars must confront the reality they have spent their lives denying." The response was immediate and powerful. Christians who had been wavering under persecution found new courage. Muslims who had been secretly questioning their faith began reaching out, wanting to know more about the Jesus who could bring the dead back to life. But the Islamic backlash was equally swift and brutal. Within days of my testimony in Zaria, fatwas were issued against me by 3 different Islamic councils. A fatwa is a religious ruling that declares someone an enemy of Islam, effectively putting a bounty on their head. Any Muslim who killed me would be considered a hero of the faith. The attacks came in waves. The first attempt happened while I was walking to the market in Kaduna. 5 young Muslim men surrounded me, armed with machetes and knives. They had planned to hack me to pieces in broad daylight, confident that no court in northern Nigeria would convict them for killing an apostate. But when their blades touched my skin, the same thing happened as in the hospital. The weapons shattered, the wounds healed instantly, and the cross-shaped scars on my chest began to glow with that same divine light. 2 of the attackers fell to their knees, overwhelmed by what they were witnessing. The other 3 fled in terror, spreading word throughout the Islamic community that I was protected by supernatural power. The second attack came at night. A group of Islamic extremists threw Molotov cocktails through the windows of the small house where I was staying with Pastor Samuel's family. The building caught fire, and they waited outside with guns, planning to shoot me as I fled the flames. But I walked through the fire unburned. Not a single hair on my head was singed. Not a thread of my clothing was damaged. I emerged from the inferno like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, carrying the same divine protection that had preserved the Hebrew children in Nebuchadnezzar's furnace. The gunmen stared in shock as I approached them, completely unharmed by flames that should have killed me in seconds. "Jesus Christ is Lord," I said simply. "He is more powerful than your fire, more powerful than your bullets, more powerful than your hatred. He loves you, and he died for your sins. You can kill my body, but you cannot kill the truth he has written on my chest." 3 of the 7 attackers converted to Christianity that night. Word of these miraculous protections spread faster than the Islamic councils could suppress it. Muslims throughout northern Nigeria began whispering about the man who couldn't be killed, the apostate whose scars proved the power of the Christian God. And then something happened that I hadn't expected. I was praying in my room one evening, thanking Jesus for his protection, and asking for wisdom about where to share my testimony next, when I felt something hard pressing against my chest. I looked down and gasped. There, hanging around my neck on a simple leather cord, was the wooden cross. The same cross Pastor Samuel had given me months earlier. The same cross my family had destroyed when they discovered my conversion. The same cross I had held in my hands as I whispered prayers to Jesus in the darkness of my bedroom. But it was different now. The wood, which had been rough and simple before, now gleamed like polished gold. And carved into its surface, in perfect Arabic calligraphy, were the words Isa al-Masi, Jesus, the Messiah. I hadn't put it on. I hadn't found it anywhere. It had simply appeared around my neck, as if Jesus himself had placed it there. If you've ever doubted whether God can restore what persecution has destroyed, share this moment with someone who needs to know that nothing is impossible with Christ. I understood immediately what this meant. The wooden cross wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was a weapon. Not a weapon of violence, but a weapon of truth. Every time I showed it to a Muslim, along with the cross-shaped scars on my chest, they would have to confront the reality that Jesus Christ is exactly who he claimed to be. The Son of God, the Messiah, the Lord of Lords, and King of Kings. And Islam's greatest enemy, because he offered something Islam never could. Not just submission to a distant God, but relationship with a loving Father. Not just hope for paradise after death, but abundant life right now. Not just religious duty, but supernatural power over every force of darkness. The witness was just beginning, and the Islamic world was about to discover that their death sentences were no match for the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. 6 months after my resurrection, the Islamic High Council of Northern Nigeria made a decision that would change everything. They were losing the battle for hearts and minds. Too many Muslims were converting to Christianity after hearing my testimony. Too many Islamic clerics were unable to explain away the miraculous protections I displayed. Too many young people were questioning whether Allah was truly more powerful than the Christian God who had brought me back from the dead. So they decided to end it once and for all. Imam Abdullahi, the same radical cleric who had tried to kill me in the hospital, issued a public challenge that was broadcast on radio stations throughout northern Nigeria. The apostate Aminu claims that his Christian God is more powerful than Allah. His voice crackled through speakers in mosques across the region. He claims that his scars are proof of divine intervention. He claims that no Muslim weapon can harm him. The challenge was simple and brutal. I would be brought before a gathering of 1,000 Muslims in the central mosque of Kano, the largest Islamic city in northern Nigeria. There, in front of witnesses from across West Africa, Islamic scholars would examine my scars and my claims. If they could prove that my survival was the result of witchcraft or deception, I would be executed immediately according to Islamic law. But if they could not, if my testimony proved to be genuine, then they would acknowledge that Jesus Christ possessed power that Islam could not explain. Let the Christian God protect him in the house of Allah, Imam Abdullahi declared. Let us see if his Jesus is stronger than 1,000 faithful Muslims crying out for his blood. Pastor Samuel begged me not to go. Aminu, this is a trap. They don't want to examine your testimony. They want to murder you in front of a crowd so large that no one will be able to claim it was anything other than Islamic justice. But I knew I had to accept the challenge. This was the moment Jesus had been preparing me for. The ultimate test of whether the cross-shaped scars on my chest were truly divine proof or elaborate deception. The gathering took place on a Friday afternoon, the holiest day of the Islamic week. The central mosque of Kano was packed beyond capacity, with thousands more Muslims gathered in the streets outside, listening through loudspeakers. I walked into that mosque wearing only a simple white robe, the wooden cross hanging visibly around my neck. The crowd's reaction was immediate and violent. Shouts of kafir and death to the apostate echoed off the walls. If not for the heavy security presence, they would have torn me apart before I reached the front of the mosque. Imam Abdullahi stood at the mihrab, the niche that indicates the direction of Mecca, flanked by 12 of the most respected Islamic scholars in West Africa. These were men who had memorized the entire Quran, who had studied Islamic law for decades, who were considered the ultimate authorities on religious truth in our region. Remove your robe, Imam Abdullahi commanded. Show us these scars you claim were made by Allah's divine intervention. I removed the white robe, and the mosque fell silent. The cross-shaped scars across my chest were more pronounced than ever, glowing with a faint light that was visible even in the bright afternoon sun, streaming through the mosque's windows. 72 perfectly healed stab wounds, arranged in the unmistakable shape of the Christian cross. One of the Islamic scholars, an elderly man named Dr. Mahmoud, who was renowned for his medical knowledge as well as his religious expertise, approached me with a magnifying glass. "These scars," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent mosque, "they are real. They are not painted on. They are not temporary markings. They are genuine scars from deep wounds that have healed with supernatural precision." He traced the pattern with his finger, and I could see the confusion in his eyes. The mathematical probability of 72 random stab wounds healing in this exact formation. It is impossible. This could not happen by chance. Then explain it, Imam Abdullahi demanded. If this is not the work of Allah, then what power has done this? Dr. Mahmoud was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at me with an expression I had never seen on the face of an Islamic scholar before. Wonder. There is only one explanation, he said slowly. The same power that the Christians claim raised their Jesus from the dead. That same power has raised this man from the dead and marked him with their symbol. The mosque erupted in chaos. Some Muslims shouted that this was blasphemy, that Dr. Mahmoud had been deceived by Christian witchcraft. Others demanded to know how this was possible if Islam was the true faith. But Imam Abdullahi wasn't finished. "Even if your scars are genuine," he said, his voice rising above the crowd, "even if you truly died and returned, this proves nothing about your Christian God. Show us a sign that cannot be explained by dark magic. Show us proof that your Jesus is more powerful than Allah." I reached into the small bag I had been allowed to bring with me and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were photocopies of my medical records from Kaduna General Hospital, certified by 3 different doctors and witnessed by a government official. "These are my hospital records," I announced, holding them up for the crowd to see. They document 72 stab wounds, each one fatal. They record my death at 11:47 p.m. on the night my family attacked me. They record no heartbeat, no brain activity, no signs of life for exactly 72 minutes. I handed the documents to Dr. Mahmoud, who examined them carefully. "These records are genuine," he confirmed. "I know Dr. Yusuf personally. His signature is authentic. The hospital seal is legitimate. According to these documents, this man was medically dead for over an hour. But here is the proof you asked for." I continued, pulling out a second set of documents. These are the same medical records, but taken after my resurrection. They show complete healing of all 72 wounds. No internal damage, no organ failure, no scarring, except for the cross pattern you see on my chest. The silence in the mosque was deafening. "And here," I said, removing the wooden cross from around my neck and holding it high above my head, "is the cross that my family destroyed when they discovered my conversion. The same cross that appeared around my neck 6 months after my resurrection, transformed and bearing the name of Jesus in Arabic script. If the medical evidence and the miraculous cross have answered a question you've been carrying about God's power, leave one word that captures your hope. It helps testimonies like this reach the souls who need them most." I looked directly at Imam Abdullahi. "You asked for proof that Jesus Christ is more powerful than Allah. I am that proof. These scars are that proof. This cross is that proof. And every day that I continue to live, despite your fatwas and your death sentences and your attempts to silence me, is proof that the God I serve is stronger than the God you worship." The revelation was complete. The proof was undeniable. And the Islamic world was about to discover that their greatest enemy wasn't Christian missionaries or Western influence. It was the truth. That day in the Mosque of Kano, 47 Muslims surrendered their lives to Jesus Christ. Today, 7 years later, I carry these cross-shaped scars as a living testament that no religious system, no matter how ancient or revered, can stand against the truth of the gospel. The wooden cross still hangs around my neck, still bearing the Arabic inscription, Isa al-Masih, Jesus the Messiah. If my story has stirred something in your heart, if you felt the pull of truth that no amount of religious tradition can silence, I invite you to do what I did in that small church in Kaduna. Open a Bible. Read the words of Jesus for yourself. Ask him to reveal himself to you, just as he revealed himself to me. He is waiting. He is calling. And he is more powerful than any force that would try to keep you from him. The cross is real. The resurrection is real. And his love for you is real.